Before we get started and while everyone gets seated, I have two announcements to make before we get started properly. First one is, this was not my talk, so I wasn't supposed to be here. So whatever mistakes or whatever things I mess up, it's not because I was a Flash developer. It's not because Flash developers are awful coders. It's just because maybe I haven't rehearsed. We'll see. So that's just first things first. And then second is, I love cats, OK? So since we're just putting everything in the open, I love cats. I'm a cat person, what can I say? And just because I had to redo the slides and that to myself, and because I could, then I just decided to throw a lot of cat pictures here. So not sure what you expect from this talk, but you're getting cats. At least that's something. Hopefully someone enjoys and appreciates it. So let's get real now. So where are we? We're going to talk about front-end development and modern workflows and modern frameworks. And this should come as no surprise to anyone that's been around Liferay and in several DEVCONs for a while, right? So this embrace the platform message is not something that we just came up with for this event. It's something we've been discussing for a while. And if you take a look here, it's 2015, we already started having these discussions. We already started embracing how modern developers, front-end developers wanted to actually do their work, do their job, right? So it's something that we've been trying and we've been investing time in it for a long while. And of course, we have the whole modularity concept. And Liferay is investing a lot in modularity. And when you come to these events, there's a lot of talk about it. And usually it's all Java, all OSGI, which is good because we're embracing that. But I don't think there's any community that has embraced modularity as the front-end community has, right? So it's important to acknowledge that as well. We are actually the masters of modularity, sometimes too much, right? And we'll see that in a minute. And then we've been talking for years, and eventually, what do we have to show for it? Well, this is what we have: a bunch of questions, issues, and doubts in our forum pages. And I'm showing this to show two things. One is that we care. We care that you guys are finding issues. We care that you guys aren't being able to just go there and be productive and use the tools you want, right? And we go there and we try to answer them. And that's important to us, to get this feedback back. So to everyone out there that's opening issues, that's giving us feedback, that's feeling the pain of the things that are not possible, we want to say both sorry and also thanks. Because thanks to all this feedback, we can realize and we can see that we have some problems, right? And first cut here. So the problem is that sometimes, or currently in Liferay, the support we have for frontends does not match regular front-end developer expectations, right? So when they come to the portal, they want to develop in a specific way, and we've told them that there are things that are possible, and then what they expect is not what they get, right? So that's a real issue we need to address. And what they expect is to be able to use the tools they know and the modules that are available to them. And there's this thing called NPM around, right? It was built around the Node ecosystem and the Node platform, and it currently holds or hosts over 500,000 different packages. So talk about modularity there, right? And what a front-end developer wants to do is just go there and use those. And these are just some random numbers, not really random, from last week. So in the past 24 hours, over 150 million packages were downloaded from NPM. If you take a week, that takes 3,000 million downloads in just 7 days of development. That counts weekends as well, so you can imagine. So in the past month, over 12,000 million packages were downloaded. So front-end developers out there are actually embracing modularity and expect that those modules and those packages out there are available to them so that they can simply use them any way they want. So then I think by now the solution is clear. We want to support NPM. Right? That's what front-end developers want. So that's what we need to do. So here I think I'm going to add a quote just for a second. I think it's very important to recognize contributions. And we are on the second day of DEVCON. It's usually community-oriented, and I think it's the perfect moment to recognize that what I'm going to show and what I'm going to try to describe in the next 15 minutes wouldn't have been possible without the community and without a specific member of the community who, around a year ago, engaged with us in conversations, in talks, kept nagging us to show how important this was and how this could be done. So probably you know Pierre. If you want to stand, Pierre. So big round of applause to him. So it wouldn't have been possible without him. So when after the talk you see him around, give him a hug because he was a Flash developer too. He probably needs it. And also thank him for his passion and all his help in contributing to Liferay. So he actually sent us this proof of concept a year ago in which we build on top to create what we think might be a good solution on the platform level for everyone. So, okay, it's clear what we want to do. It's clear what we want to support. But what are the challenges? And I just come from upstairs from a very interesting talk where they show how they integrated React specifically in Portal and they came up with similar problems that we are facing and are trying to solve. And for us, at least based on the comments and on the messages we see, the biggest issue is matching developer expectations. When you take away all the technical difficulties, the personal level is actually the most challenging. And I like this quote. So when talking about expectations, we always try to look into this principle of least astonishment. It's just a formulation which is in its most common form. It says, if a necessary feature has a high astonishment factor, it may be necessary to redesign the feature. So what it means is that if you build something and then when your users, those might be developers, when they go to use it, if whatever happens surprises them, and not in a good way, like, oh, that's awesome. No, if it surprises them because they don't know what's going on, but it doesn't do what they expected it to do, then you probably didn't build the right thing. And I think that's what we found out when we built and introduced all this loader and modern workflow support early on in Liferay 7. What this means is that developers want to develop, right? And a front-end developer wants to use the tools that he knows. And that's a very important distinction. So you can build something around, you can build your custom tailored solution, but that's not what they expect. So if you tell them they can use everything out there, but then it turns out it's something other than everything, it's not everything they know, then that's a surprise, and they're not going to be happy. Also, they don't expect applications to just suddenly stop working or work in a different way because some things didn't get in a bundle or in a jar or in a zip file because they know their application works, so why did it stop working now? Where are my files, right? So they don't want to have to care about how everything is getting put together. And of course, no one expects that when you deploy something, something else is going to break, and there are going to be interactions, or the system is going to degrade, right? And above all, the biggest expectation is that nothing breaks. So if you add new stuff, well, why my application that was working before, why all of a sudden now it's not, right? So those are very big challenges that we face. And then building up on this least astonishment principle, what we define as least surprising may change depending on the audience, right? So it's not the same when we're defining what's surprising for a developer than for an end user. So in our case, for instance, for developers in general, we know that they just want to develop. They want to use the tools, the IDEs, the frameworks that they feel comfortable with. So for front-end in particular, or one thing that they don't want to do is care about how the backend is built, how the application is put together, how it gets really safe under the hood, or how it works in conjunction with other actors in the system. For administrators, for example, something that could be surprising behavior is that we gave all the power to the front-end developers, and then they got no way to change which modules were developed or were deployed in a system, or they didn't have any control over the whole system, let's say, performance or setup in general, right? So for an admin to tell them, now you have no control, that would be actually a surprising behavior that they probably wouldn't like. So in practical terms, what this means is that when you try to apply the principle of least astonishment, it means that when you are developing your solution, you try to borrow from existing solutions, from things that users already know and are familiar with, because that is what's going to make them feel comfortable. It's what to make them feel in a familiar surroundings, right? And it's going to help them understand what's going on. So, for instance, backwards compatibility is something that's really important. It's important that if they're used to the current infrastructure, if they're used to how things work, things shouldn't break, right? And that's going to help them just feel comfortable with the environment. And talking about modularity, right? So now we move to this modular portal where everything is modular and everything is contributing to. And we've had modularity in the front end for a while. So if we were to do something, it should be something similar to what we know. So we have the AMD loader, so that should be closer to what required.js is in the front end, because that's what we're used to. If we need to build a bundler, it should be similar to other solutions out there like Browserify, Webpack, or Rollup, because front-end developers already know about them. They know how they work. So on with the plan. We know that we need something. We need to do something on the process. I won't get into very much detail because I think we have better ways to show what we did, but I'll try just to explain. So we need to do something with our code, and that's not something unusual for front development today. So you just put together your application, you have a build step, you put files together, convert them, you can target different browsers depending on what you want. In the end, you use whatever tools you want to bundle your project. Then that should get deployed somewhere, and that's the portal. And the change here from what we had before is that now we want to make this information available in general, right? So we need some solution in the portal that understands that something is getting deployed, that is contributing packages and modules to a whole ecosystem, and to find ways and create some APIs or mechanisms so that that information can be consumed and then can be acted upon to make for a nice overall experience. And finally, this information will leverage the existing infrastructure that's already in Portal, like the MD loader, to make sure that at the end we can serve performant applications in a very efficient way under the Portal constraints. So I'm going to try to explain this with pictures. So here's it says Intrepid developer. It's probably insane to just even want to try this, but hopefully he gets lucky. So we have a front-end developer who wants to create a portlet, and we have Blade SDK here to help us. So because we have these tools, you can just create a template for a portlet, and that's really easy to do. And then I just want to use some NPM modules. That's where we started, right? So I saw this flashy new library, and I don't want to use it because it's flashy, but because it actually helps me build what I want, right? So that's what I want to do. And I know NPM is somewhere out there in that cloud, and that's where I'm getting my components. That's where I'm getting my packages. So I'll just go there and then download everything I need as I usually do. That gets downloaded to my local machine, my working environment. I have my node modules folder, and then from there on, I can work on my solution. And we're going to assume here that this developer is doing TDD and BDD and all the nice things, so he doesn't even need a portal. Maybe he does, who knows. But let's imagine that for a moment, he's done with his solution, he has an application, and now it's time to deploy it to the portal. So here we have the portal. That's, I guess, a very simplified version of it. Ray would probably agree. That's not how a portal looks like, but for the demo, I guess it works. So If you want to deploy your solution, you have our regular tooling, like the Gradle plugins, Maven solutions to deploy as well. That will help you assemble the jar, get the metadata, help you out with all this process. And, well, because this is a specific or a very particular case, you might do something else, like use an extra bit of tooling that will help the portal understand what you're doing on the front-end side. And that's what we call the NPM bundler. Eventually, it's just a build step that will assemble your code and will ship it to the portal. And then that's where magic starts to happen. So Portal will know that your bundle came in, something out of the wild appeared there, and it contained information, it contained packages. So it can leverage that information to register in a way to expose this information as a whole to the system and to keep it there. So it's going to track which packages are there, which version numbers, dependencies, as well as semantic versioning expressions, so that we can do smarter things on runtime. Then we have a portlet, and then a user comes to the page. The user comes to a page that actually deployed this application. And what happens is that we usually just render the HTML, and then things get started, right? But now in this scenario, we have control and we have knowledge about everything that's deployed out there. We know, we have, let's say, a mini clone of this NPM global registry inside the portal with everything that's available at every given moment. And that information gets served, gets passed to the loader, which in turn knows how to combine the application. And this is a very important distinction to what we had before, because it allows us to do things like if two portlets are using the same version of React, we can make sure that they both just get the same one. It even helps us further. So if two portlets are using different versions of React, but they are semantically versioning compatible, then they will both get the same one. Of course, this is a stretch, and if you get, it doesn't mean that by numbers you won't get breaking changes. That's the semantic versioning beauty, because it's not easily enforced, but you can get the idea, right? So if someone wants 15.6.6, and then someone else wants 15.6.7, then both get the upper one, which probably contains more fixes and is more secure. Right? So we can do a lot of smart improvements on top of this. So that's pretty much it. And the good news is it works. It's done. We already blogged about this this week and tweeted about it. So you have the links later if you want to check this out. It's documented. Don't get used to this, but it is documented there. It's extensively documented, so go there, check out the documents, check out what it means. And we even built plate samples with some of the most common frameworks out there at the moment. And we're also working on Blade templates, so you can just kickstart the project real quick. So I guess the question now is, can I use this? Well, for one, yes, you can. You don't have to wait for 7.1. So we made it in a way that was backwards compatible, that didn't break anything, so that we could actually bring it back to the existing 7.0 and DXP solution. So if you're on a subscription, Fixpack 30 already contains the core modules that you need to use to deploy this kind of projects, and it will be out in GA5 as soon as it gets released. So thank you. So with warm-up, you're going to need the applauses later. So there's more coming. OK, so let's go demo. Because what could go wrong? Okay. So I have here an empty portal, right? So there's nothing here at this moment. And can you guys read this? Let's try that. OK, so I've created, as I was saying, a Blade workspace. So for this example in particular, Greg helped us build a specific distribution of Blade that contains very specific, those Blade templates that I showed before. They won't be available like that in the release version, so they will be more like scaffolding projects that get you started. But for this, it's going to help us a lot. So I created this Blade workspace here, and then I'm already on my modules folder. You see that I have some already created. That's just because I was trying it out yesterday to make sure demo won't fail. But let's try it out for real. So with Blade, what you can do is Blade contains a lot of archetypes and different types of projects that can help you get started real quick, right? So we've added these NPM ones, these ones here, right? So if you want to create an Angular Portlet, jQuery, Metal.js, React, Vue.js, you can just use those to get started. And what it means is that when you type, it was NPM, sorry, I forgot. NPM React Portlet, right? And then you give it a name. So it automatically creates a folder for you with all the scaffolding here. So I'm going to navigate there and get started with the deploy because you know NPM install. If you do, I'm sorry as well. And while this gets started, I will go through some of the key elements here. So as you see, we have a regular folder. If you're familiar with Portlet development, let me close this. It's just a simple Portlet, MVC Portlet, nothing fancy there. And then on the front-end side, we have our common Vue DXP, right? Our initial view. And in this case, what this one's doing is just, if you were at the previous talk, this looks very similar to the other solution. So we have a div element with an ID that we'll use to be the root of our React application. And then we just have some bootstrapping code. And the key here is this bootstrapping code still lives in Liferay, and then it goes to this file here, this module that will automatically get for you. And that's where the things get interesting, right? So from the JSP, from this JavaScript file, what you're exporting is a default function that will actually start the render of the React application, right? And then, but everything here, you're building as if you were building a regular React application. So you're importing your modules from React DOM, because you're doing web rendering from React. And then you're just writing your code using JSX here, right? So you're creating your squares, your boards, you're creating your game, and your logic. And that's pretty much what you want to do as a front-end developer, especially if you know React, right? So what else we have here? If you check, we have a package.json file, and that's also a very big difference. So you're doing a React project, right? So you expect to see those dependencies there. You need React and React DOM. That's what you want. And then you have some developer dependencies, because you know you're using JSX, so you need to transpile. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that you're seeing there the React presets or the Babel CLI. And finally, something important here, other than the name and the version, is that we have these build scripts. So for a while, we've always tried to guess what the developer needed, and we always come short. Right? It's always never enough, because developers always want to do something else, and by the time we get there, they already need something different, right? So we're trying to give the power back to developers. So for instance, in this case, and with the new already released Gradle plugins versions, if in presence of a build script in your package.json, that's what's going to be got called. So you can build your application any way you want, because you know how you want to build your application. And then just leverage the rest to the assemble and the jar processes and the deploy to the system. But we won't be touching your code, or we won't be telling you how you should write it, right? So we're opening the door for different ways to bundle, build, and pack your applications. Of course, if you get this responsibility, well, this is a lot of power. You need to know how to bundle it, right? So do whatever you want in the end. Know that you need to bundle it. And there's some other things here. So you have a Babel RC, and there's a specific NPM bundler RC file, which is the one that lets us know what you need to do. So we've created a lot of presets for the common frameworks. So this should also get you up and running. And of course, you can build your own. So if you have a custom solution and you need to build custom presets, this is all documented, so you can check it out. So real quick, because we're running out of time, if you see here, I click the deploy, and what happened is because we have a package.json file, it ran npm install and got all the modules installed. Then here, it executed my build command, right? So you can see there that my build command got executed, and then it did everything I needed to do. It bundled the dependencies, and eventually it just built a jar and deployed it. So let's see if it actually worked. It actually didn't. Okay. So, yeah, we call this one React DEVCON. Okay, so this is the one we just created. And we have a tic-tac-toe game written in React running as a portlet in Liferay Portal. So, give it for me. So we took away all the pain from having to know so much about Portal development. So let's try real quick to do a change here. So I'll just change the UI a little bit. And then instead of just showing a boring X and Y, I'll just show an image. I'll add some CSS code here. And then I'll copy some resources I have. Okay, should be here, some images. And then I'll just deploy again. Okay, so this is not as cool as hot reloading. Hopefully we'll get there sometime. Probably you can get there with our help. So that's where we're trying to just provide platform features that you can build on top. But at least I got this change. I didn't have to do pretty much anything. Then hopefully, yeah, my React app just changed, and now kittens can rule over packs forever. Right, so, yay. Okay, so now that we warm up, this is just for like professionals. So I'm a trained demo specialist. So what I'm going to do now, don't try at home without supervision. It probably will go wrong. So, but here, and I won't show them in detail, but as I showed you before, I have some Angular, Billboards, isomorphic meta, and Vue apps that I already prepared. They follow the same structure. They have a Vue.jsp. This is their Vue 1. So if you're familiar with Vue.js, that's what you do. And then the same, you bootstrap Vue.js, and then you write your Vue.js code. There's nothing else you need to do, right? And then your package.json, it will just need Vue instead of something else. So I'm going to try to put all of them at once in the same page. So hold your breath. Start with Angular, adding some charting library here. Metal.js, because where would we without Metal? Vue.js here, and even isomorphic, which means it's going to run both on the server and on the client. So not sure if you realize this, but I have a Vue.js portlet working here, an Angular portlet doing all the crazy stuff, Metal.js, isomorphic code, and even some nice charting libraries. So with that, I think there's very little less to say. If you need anything, have any questions, you know where to find me. Thank you.